Hi, Helle, how are you? Everything okay with you?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm great. I'm in Denmark today. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's great to be talking to you. Dreams of Lens and Scene is Ignea's third album that will be released on the 28th of April. What can your fans and the metal world in general expect from this album?
I think that it's the best record that we've made so far because it also has like the Ignea sound that a lot of people are already used to. But I think that we put out the best that we had there. There are a lot of melodic songs, but also with some brutal parts. There are folk elements like melodies with different sounds, like from different countries. There are a lot of synthesizers. And on this album, it comes, even from a sad metal ballad with some Chinese sounds to I don't know, to a Middle Eastern song about the Sahara Desert, to some traditional Ukrainian singing and several songs in Ukrainian language. So it's very diverse. And this album is about traveling to different countries. So you can listen to the album and just travel along, so to say.
Yeah, and it's a great album, I must say.
Thank you.
Now, Ignea have developed their own sound, their own very specific sound throughout the years. How do you mix all your different influences?
So basically, we have our main composer is our keyboardist, Evgeny, and usually he writes all the music. And he really likes, for example, these Middle Eastern sounds, and you could hear them on the previous albums as well. Although we're not, from Arabic countries, he just likes how it sounds. It sounds more unique, so that's why it's very usual in our songs. Apart from that, the symphonic elements, orchestral arrangements as well, very like, just because we also like listening to this kind of stuff. But I think that the main influence that we have is that we don't really listen to metal only. We listen to a lot of different genres, even electronic music and pop music, classical music. And that's why it's easier for us to come up with these ideas and just combine different elements. And maybe, I just think about them as decorations to metal, to aggressive sound. This
Yeah.
is how it works.
Yeah, so you just everything falls into one song. You don't write one part and then the other part and then mix it all. Everything falls into place.
Yeah, yeah, I think that this is how it works for us. It's like puzzles, just
Mhm.
building it all. And also, it depends on what the song is about, what we want to do with it. Because sometimes, on the previous record, we also had some songs without symphonic arrangements at all,
Mhm.
and they're still working and they still sound like our song. But yeah, of course, with us, maybe our distinctive sound is also having keyboards a lot, again because the keyboardist
Mhm.
is the main composer, so you
Yeah.
cannot just leave him out out of the band. So yeah.
Yeah, and comparing this album, comparing Dreams of Lens and Sin to your last album that was Realms of Fire and Death, what do you think is the biggest difference between them?
I think that it sounds more aggressive guitar wise because just for some reason, like we have the same sound producer, but on this record, you can really hear the very heavy, chunky guitars and drums as well. I don't know. For me, like on this album, this is what sounds the best. Although in general, I like the sound as well. I think that we also leveled up as musicians, and
Mhm.
you can hear it. I can hear it as well, and we really had time. We took time to write this album and also like put out like an entire concept. And it was a long work and we put a lot of efforts into it. And also, one of the differences is that I contributed to maybe 15-20% of the album music wise. I mean, with the melodies, and we also experimented. For example, the keyboardist, he could give me like very different parts of the song, and I combined them instead of him combining that. And then he developed it further. So maybe we took just another way of composing as well for some songs.
Yeah, and so that change in the composition. part from your last album to this one. Um, what about your singing technique? Did anything change? Did you try any new technique to this album?
I think that nothing changed very drastically, but the growls are really way more aggressive because I worked on them more. And also because, for example, the part with growls was recorded after the war has started. And that's why, to be honest, like I put all my fury into those growls, like as much as I could. And I think that this can be really heard on the album.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned the war, how did the war affect your path as a band?
Well, basically, we composed all the songs before the war started, and we even managed to record half of the album before February 24th. Then we had to stop for several months because we were in Kiev and some parts of the region were occupied and we were terrified. Nothing was working in terms of sound production. No one was thinking even about this. But when the region was deoccupied, we just decided that we should proceed with the recordings because we still had hope that maybe this war would finish. And also, we just wanted this album to be out so badly. And that's why we recorded the second part of the album, in between air raid sirens, like missile attacks. We also had to go to another side of the city to the studio, and it took us 3 hours every time because we had a lot of checkpoints where people checked your passports or whatever. So yeah, then we had to postpone the release in any case for this year because we couldn't take band pictures, like because the photographers were not working properly. There's I don't know, the filming crews also couldn't do anything because they were either on the front line or they were afraid to open up the business. I mean, it was chaos. So we postponed the release, and it's also interesting that we filmed 3 videos in 2 months this winter, and it was the time of the biggest blackouts in Ukraine. So it was, and when you're filming a video, you need to book a studio, you need to rent out a lot of things, you need to call people, you need to text them. And when there is a blackout, there is no cell connection, there is no internet, you cannot arrange anything, and you need a lot of electricity for your lights, for the cameras. So we had to use the generators, and there was a strict curfew. I still don't know how we managed it all, but we filmed all the videos, and to me, these are the best videos that we made so far. So, and the final thing is that is very painful is that we cannot normally tour right now because the
Yeah.
men cannot leave the country, and this is the biggest pain that we have. Last year, we played some shows because we had a permission from the Ministry of Culture to leave. It worked, but now it doesn't work anymore with anyone. Maybe it will change until summer because we have some festivals out there, but right now we just cannot
Yeah.
we cannot tour.
Yeah, I hope you will be able to tour because it, and I mean, you probably don't have anything scheduled for Portugal yet, but if you do and if you can, it will be great to see you here.
Yeah, we'd love to come back because we played at Vagos Festival back in 2019, and it was one of the best festivals we've played at. We would love to be back.
Yeah, and now you were just talking about the war. None of the members ever went to the front line, did they?
No, because like we have our mobilization works so that in the first place, people with military experience are mobilized for the
Yeah.
war. But again, when the time comes, they can be if the war is still here. So, and it's really frightening. And right now, from the beginning of the war, we were just contributing by spreading awareness about this war, also giving interviews, donating a lot from our merch sales to the army, to the volunteers. And this is our way, of fighting. And also we stayed in Ukraine. So that's why we're basically also supporting the economy in our way because we we filmed videos with Ukrainian production teams in Kiev. We have a Ukrainian sound producer. So basically, this is also our way to help.
Yeah, let's hope the war ends soon and win good terms for Ukraine. Now, coming back to Dreams of Lands and Scene, you talked that this album has a home concept behind. Can you
Yeah.
say the story behind it and why you came up with it?
Yeah, so we were sitting in the middle of the pandemic and I really like traveling, so it was very hard for me. And we also had some demos that had these traditional folk elements, and I thought it would be cool to make an album about different travelers, like dedicate each song to a different traveler. But when I found out about Sofia Jablonska, I was so mind blown that I decided that the entire album should be about her. I read like all the books that I could find, so like her travelogues. I read about her. I bought a photo album of with her like photos, and I became really obsessed with her story. I also found a lot of similarities between her attitude to life and mine when we are traveling, because I also don't like, for example, coming to very touristic places because I like to experience like the places from in depth. And for her, it's the same. And for example, on the song Incurable Disease, it's a song about her passion for the sea and everything marine. And I'm like just the same person. When I see the waves and the sea and the ships, it's like I'm all there. So it's very similar between us, although there is like 100 years difference, because she lived
Yeah,
in the 20th century. And finally, I was just really pleased that we could also spread the word about a famous, really cool Ukrainian out there. And again, I know that now it's very popular for everything Ukrainian to be out there because of the war. But we wrote this album before the war
yeah,
started. So, yeah, it was intentional.
yeah. It was a great way to talk about one of your national, not heroes, but yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and I suppose that Dreams of Lands and Scene also come from maybe a title of one of her books or something related to the concept.
No, well, you could find also this line in the chorus of Incurable Disease. And at first, we wanted to call this album Teura because this is how Sofia Jablonska was called by the natives of the Bora Bora island. And it translates as red bird. But then we just thought that if people, for example, are not aware about the concept of the album, that they're just hearing it out, it's not very obvious what this album is about. And when you see the title Dreams of Lands Unseen, then it could be about, traveling. You can
Yeah,
associate it with traveling. And also like I want to say it's like dreams of lands that we personally haven't seen because we haven't traveled to most of the countries she's been to. And also, she traveled in the 20th century. It was absolutely different from traveling now.
yeah.
So, we will never be able actually to see these lands through the eyes of Sophia, So, this is how it matches with the album.
Yeah, and it's a great idea. Indeed, you are totally right. Dreams of Lands and Scene is a lot more picturable than the Taura.
Yeah.
Now, this is also your first album on Napalm Records. How did
Yeah.
this connection started?
No, basically, we received an offer from them, and they're like one of the biggest labels. And we also have some label mates, our fellow Ukrainian bands who are also on this label. So that's why we decided that maybe it's time to sign and take the band to another level. And I think that it was like a perfect time because we already had our following, our audience, and signing with the label can also be an advantage and a disadvantage because like you don't have the full control anymore, but we at least have some albums behind our back that we still are in control of. That's why we decided to take this risk and just try it, because being an independent band, at some point you just face the wall of, you
Yeah,
you just have to have another level of promotion and maybe trust to your band in the industry, because being signed is just more serious, it's perceived more seriously.
yeah. And how have the experience been so far?
So far it's been really well. It's just it's very hard. I enjoy working with them day to day, and they're great people. It's just very hard to tell about either it's a success or not because the album is still is not there. So I think maybe even in half a year it would be more or less understandable.
Yeah, and now that you release your third album, would you say is the next step for Ignea?
I really want this album to take its time, for people to
Mhm,
hear it, for us to tell all the stories behind this album because there are a lot of them. And actually, I think that the day after tomorrow, we are releasing the first part of our small series, like track by track series, for people to
mhm,
understand what's behind the songs. We still hope that we will try to tour with this album maybe later on this year because the songs really sound great when we are playing them in our rehearsal room and they will sound great on stage. Um, to be honest, like I would love to say that we're working on something new, but it's very hard because after all this year of the war, we're very, drained and devastated.
yeah.
So, and also when people say like, oh, you can be inspired and, write an album about the war or whatever, like we don't romanticize the war because we've seen like all its horrors
Mhm,
and our friends are dying on the front line. So we don't want to put it like so discreetly, and write an album about the war. That's why we just want to take some time and hopefully just work on the next record because it's a very intense industry and you just
yeah.
cannot, keep silent. And also, even if you already have some songs in progress, there is so much to be done outside just composing. Again, album
Mhm,
artworks, videos, and all the rest. And we also love concepts. So we still have to find something that we want to talk about in the next record.
yeah, and I think you will make a great choice. Uh, I think that's it. It was an honor. Would you like to send any message to your Portuguese fans?
Yeah, thank you so much for checking out our band, for supporting us, and I would really love for you to check out our new album, especially if you haven't heard our band. And I just really hope that someday we will come back to your beautiful country to play again because I like it a lot.
All right, Ella, thank you so much. It was an
Thank
honor.
you. Thank you.
Right.